Welcome to Alligator Preserves, everyone. I am your host, Laurel McHargue, and today I have the pleasure of doing something I've never done before. I am interviewing co-authors, two different people on the show. And full disclosure, I have to tell you, I know these crazy ladies. So, so stay tuned, don't go anywhere. Good morning, Jean, aka GaGa Gabardi, and Judy Butler. Welcome to Alligator Preserves.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
You're welcome. You are coming from right here in Colorado, Jean, and from Florida, our friend Judy. And I've got to tell our audience, I know you two because I've worked with you and I've written with you. Right now, Jean, aka GaGa Gabardi, is the president of CC Writers Exchange. And Judy, you were the vice president, yes?
Yes, I was.
Before you decided to leave our beautiful Colorado and move to hot, sweltering Florida, where you still could have been the vice president, but that's okay. We're letting you go. Anyway, you two have written, well, I have book one of what has become a series of a cozy murder mystery. So, but before we get into your book, I would like each of you to tell me just a little bit about yourself. Judy, tell our audience who you are.
Well, Judy Butler, who lives right now in Wyoming primarily, but I spend the winters down here in Florida. I was a teacher. I was a marketing person with IBM, and now I'm happily retired, although I think I have a whole new job with writing, and we spend a lot of time working on our books and enjoying every minute of it. So that's it. Very happy to be doing it and love co-authoring with GaGa.
We'll talk about that. GaGa Gabardi, I love
I
that
think
name.
that's thank you. I think it's very funny because Judy's saying, I really enjoy this. And I'm thinking the last month has been you know where. And I'm without internet on and off, and it's been, poor Judy is like stuck holding it down in Florida. I'm sorry, Judy.
Because
But anyway,
Jean,
it's very fun.
because Jean, you've been moving, building, doing things.
Yes, yes. And thank God I have a network of women who support me in this, and I can text them and say, okay, pull me back from the ledge. And then I call Judy, and then it happens. But you know, my background, I never thought I would be a writer. I mean, I come out of the corporate world. I was in telecommunications, retired from that very happily. Then, and then I got my pilot's license, and I think I have it on the website. I needed money for fuel. Av fuel is not cheap. So a company called me up and would I do some consulting and training? And I'm like, yeah, I love it. I'll do it. And that little company was IPS, a very fun little company that, of course, has been gobbled up several different times and it's long gone now. But I got a lot of international experience and, you know, consulting and project management, and discovered I really liked developing courses, maybe not writing. But then COVID hit, and just before that, I met Judy. Oh, whole new thing, along with all the volunteering I do now in Buena Vista. And also, hubby and I have our permanent home is still Manitou Springs, but we spend a lot of time in Buena Vista. And as you mentioned, Laurel, the construction was a learning experience. Maybe I could put it that way. Thanks for asking.
Not something you would recommend to a lot of people, right?
No.
And so your nickname GaGa, I believe, was it your grandson who
Yeah.
named you?
I have a 10-year-old grandson, and he couldn't say it quite right. And so he converted grandma or whatever, you know, however babies make those choices, converted it to GaGa, and it's stuck. And now there's a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old along with the 10-year-old, and it's GaGa across the board. And now even my two daughters are calling me GaGa. So I think that's a real problem, but that's another conversation.
I think it's wonderful. I didn't realize that you two just met right before COVID hit. I thought you were longtime friends.
We met because our husbands both like to fly remote control airplanes. So they met each other and then decided that the four of us needed to get together for dinner. And we did, but it was probably 2 years before COVID hit. Don't you think, Jean?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And so, Jean, you mentioned having to buy fuel for your aircraft. I think the price of gas right now for regular is about anywhere between $3.29 a gallon to $3.59 a gallon for regular. What is it per gallon for aircraft fuel?
Have fuel for my little plane, for the airplane Dwayne and I have is a little Mooney. So it's just a little 4-passenger single engine, right?
Mhm.
And so it's very fuel efficient. It's an econo model, and it's running between 5 and 6. And it probably won't go down. You know, once it hits a peak, why would you back down? You know, no,
Right.
not really. Yeah.
Even if you could, because people will still pay, because they have to, they have to get places, right? So
Exactly.
before we get into any detailed questions about the last hurrah, a Phoebe Cornell mystery, Jean, could you give our audience an elevator pitch for this? Let's see, how many floors will I give you? I gave my last author 5 floors. So
5 floors. Wow.
yeah, you
Well,
get
in
into the
5 floors, I could actually read the back of the book. 5 floors is a lot.
all right,
My
then 3.
elevator, what? Go
Then-
ahead.
Then 3 floors. You can't
3
read the whole
floors.
back. Yeah.
If you like fun stories, murder stories, strong women, small communities, relentless detective, you need to buy this book.
All right. Bing, bing. Ladies' lingerie.
Close enough, huh?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I love it. So, Judy, why did you write this book? I mean, obviously, you guys met, you started talking. Jean, you already said you didn't think you'd ever write. We are both in the writing community because something obviously spurred you to do that. And so, what was it, Judy, that all of a sudden made the two of you decide to co-write a murder mystery?
Okay, well, it was initiated and one of the CCWE events, the one that was in Leadville, where we were asked to each do a murder mystery or a very short story. And long story short, after that was all done, and our president at the time, Jennifer, took a look at all of the short stories, she came to Jean and I and said, if you two combined your stories, you have the makings of a novel. And we just like looked at each other and thought, well, why not? Let's try it. What's the worst that could happen, And so we just started that process, not really just fumbling our way along and just trying to figure out how to do it, but we just have had a lot of fun in that writing process, and so that's what started it. And then when, of course, COVID hit, which was another reason why we would continue on, because it gave us something to do, and we can write using technology, and that's another whole story about how we write together. Yeah.
Well, we'll get into that. And so Jennifer Sweete is the one who recommended that you had a novel. I didn't know that either. And that was the one we write that I believe I missed, which is kind of ironic because I lived in Leadville, aka Orsville, should I say, for 12 years. And I what I really loved about this story is that I recognized so much. Oh my goodness. Of course I would. So wow, that was awesome. And
Can I
so
add
yeah,
something, Laurel?
please absolutely add
This,
something.
what Judy left out is, so we agreed we would combine our stories. And there was a little chat about that at the writing session also. And then Jenny Sweete really kind of carried it home. And we started working with her. Judy goes to France for like what felt like 6 months. It's like, Judy, yeah, can you hear me in France? No, no laptop, no nothing. Would send pictures of the great time she was having. And I'm back in Colorado sweating bullets trying to help put these two stories together. Judy. Sorry, Judy, sorry.
Judy. All right.
Oh.
So that gets me into my next question, which is, when I think about co-writing piece by piece 10 lessons with from a jigsaw puzzle with one of my besties, Nadine Collier, we had to figure out who was going to do what. She suggested topics, I tweaked some of them, and then I did chapters, and then at the end of the chapter, she had a separate part for reflections. And so that made it very easy. We each had very distinctive roles in co-creating our book. Now, for your book, you have a novel. So you can't really say, well, I guess you could say, I do chapter 1, you do chapter 2. I don't think that's how you did it. So without mentioning the other person, tell me, we'll start with Eugene. Tell me what your role is in developing and writing the story. What did you take on, and how did you decide what you were going to take on?
I'm sorry, did you say Judy or Jean?
Oh, Jean. Yeah, we'll go with Eugene
Laurel.
first. Yeah.
Jean?
Jean.
Oh, you said Jean?
Yeah.
Darn it. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, the first book was interesting because we had, for this first book, we had the little short stories each of us had written. And the people this book right here, we had these two little short stories. And the feedback was put them together. And so we had kind of a sketch. And so we started writing from the basis of those two little short stories. And I actually went to a workshop. Judy had gone to Florida for the winter, following, of course, her trip to France. And she had gone to Florida, and I had gone to a workshop. I think it was a February workshop with the Writers Exchange. And you talked about a narrative arc. And on the way, I had to go back to Manitou Springs. And on the way, I called up Judy and said, Judy, have you ever heard of this thing called a narrative arc? And Judy's long silence. No. I said, well, we'll just have to Google that because Laurel was talking about it, and I think it could be helpful. But we had already written most of book 1 at that point. So we were fumbling along in the dark and using those two little short stories. We were kind of building a narrative arc. Don't you think, Judy? It was kind of like that. And
Yes.
then we added to it, embellished the short stories.
Yes.
I'm glad she's agreeing.
So more specifically, how? Like we and maybe Judy, maybe you can help me.
Yeah, go ahead, Judy.
We did. So we laid out a narrative arc, and then this is really how it worked. One of us would begin writing in Google Docs. And then we would set a time, and most of the time would be like from 8 in the morning till 10 in the morning. And we would get on FaceTime and Google Docs, and we would look at what the other person had written and then edit it and add to it or subtract or do whatever till we got a page or two that we were happy with the way that looked. And then we'd go on to the next one, or I would have an idea, or Jean would have an idea and would run with that. So let's say we did another 2 or 3 pages. The next day, we would look at it together, read it out loud, and decide if we needed to do anything to it. Then sometimes, and Jean is very good at this, she would go back to take a look at what was written, and then she would augment it, maybe with some dialogue or some background information. And then we would go back together and go over it again together, and then move on. So it was really very collaborative of how we did it, how we created the stories. And sometimes we knew where we were going, and other times we freewheeled it. It just sort of happened, and then we would agree with the way the direction took. So just, and we were learning by the seat of our pants, having never done this.
Yeah, true confessions.
Right.
It sounds like it was written kind of in a pantser style, pantsers versus planners. So was any portion of it planned?
In book 1, I would say not so much. Book 2, I had an ending in mind, and I wrote the ending, and Jean did not read the ending.
Right.
Jean and I wrote the rest of the book. And whenever anything came up that I knew wouldn't work with the ending, I said, well, we can't do that. Jean would revisit. We had a lot of fun. That was interesting.
Well, what was this purposeful that you said, I have an ending and Jean, I don't want you to read it? That was purposeful?
No. Jean chose not to read it.
Right.
She didn't want to know what the end was while she was writing and working on the rest of the story. So it was only times that, if something got written in the story that Jean was writing into the story and I knew it didn't fit the ending, then we rewrote it. So yeah, that was fun. But it was Jean's choice. And then it wasn't until we were right up to the last chapter that she read it, and she liked it. So that was good news, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I might add, after Judy had coached me for 200 pages, no, that's not going to fit. Oh, wait, that's not going to work. Or, and we went, but I think we figured out a system. And first off, and Judy didn't mention this, Judy is a great reader. And so we read the whole thing, and I listen and she reads it to see how it sounds, because eventually someone's going to read this book, right? At least we hope. And so reading it, does it make sense? One of the pitfalls is you read a paragraph, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs at a time, and sometimes you can correct, and now it's out of sync with previous. And so that, that calls for more editing and the like. But I think Judy reading it really makes a big difference. And she's got a great voice for it. Me, I sound like I've been drinking cheap whiskey and smoking cigars for, 50 years. But Judy has a reading voice. So it really comes alive when she reads. And then when I go in and correct, or not correct, but embellish, because I'm great at embellishing, at least my family says I am. And I highlight in pink, and Judy highlights in green, or whatever color. I don't know what her next choice is going to be, but I tend to stick to my red highlight. So it's obvious, that kind of thing. But I think that really makes a big difference. Google Docs. Oh my, what would we do without Google Docs? There's a plug for whoever owns it now.
Looking for an investment advice? No.
Yeah, that's a side hustle.
But
Right.
it's a really good point though, to read aloud what you've written. I don't care if it's a short story or a novel, because right, that's where you're going to find out sentences that a reader would trip over or would have to go back and reread 3 times. And you don't want a
Wow.
reader to have to do that. So reading it
Oh.
aloud everybody should do that before submitting it anywhere.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so you did
That's
that.
great advice. Okay, we'll try that, right, Judy?
Yeah, you got it, Jean.
You did that intuitively. So
Right.
so Judy, what makes a murder mystery cozy?
Well, we are very careful with our language so that it's a book that many age ranges can read comfortably without being offended. Although there might be some innuendo about sex, there is no blatant sex in it. It is very comfortable and nice to read. We are very careful that we don't include things that we personally think might offend somebody else, whether it's an ethnic comment or religious comment. So, and then the story is not like some murder mysteries where you would get into the gory description of the murder itself and the crime itself. Ours is much lighter than that. Our characters are fun. Our characters have great senses of humor as they just you get to know them a little bit. So it's a fun, light, comfortable read. And as Jean has said, you could cozy up next to the fireplace, or you could lay out on the beach and read this book and enjoy it.
Anything to add, Jean? GaGa?
Well, I think that's exactly right. I think that's the way cozy mystery should be. And the ones that I've read, they're fun to read. And you get into the characters. And then when we survived the first book and started on the second book, and then the third book, of course, we really came to really love our characters. And would they really do this, or what would they do? Or people really love Roz and the persona of Roz, and how we write the dialogue for Roz, a Southern New Orleans girl. And so it's very fun. It can be hard work, as you know, Laurel, with everything you've written, but it's cozy, and it's just cozy to read. It's fun and relaxing. It's an escape. And I think Colorado Life magazine voted it one of the top books for books that take you away for 2021. And I thought, you know what, that's a good book. So sometimes you need that. I don't read, I read a lot of variety. Judy does too, but a book that takes you away, whether you're on the beach or at the fireplace.
It took me both away and back to Orsville, which really
Oh,
is Leadville. I mean, I still have Leadville Laurel as my website, because after living there for 12 years, and you got to love the alliteration, so I'm still Leadville Laurel even though I live in Salida. But it was fun to know where you were talking about in different places, and just the tone of the whole place, and your characters, and of course the humor that you have in it. Which one of you is the funny girl? I think you both are.
I think Jean does a lot of the humor when she writes it, for the most part. Once in a while I'll come up with something, but I enjoy what she puts in there. It's very quick-witted, and thinking about the characters and how they would act, and what would be funny about them. So I think Jean is really, really good at that, and she's very, very good at the history, including the history.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I must say, Judy is very good at laughing at my quips, my one-liners.
Jean, encourage you.
Yes, right. Well, and I facilitate her her humor. So she'll say, oh yeah, how about that? And then we go here. And that, so it really grows, it really augments. So it really is a kind of a mutual admiration society.
Perfect. Who came up with Buns Up Bakery?
Jean did.
So you've got elements of humor, you've got the mystery, there's no gore. It
Right.
is delightful in its presence. And then you've got the romance aspect, right?
Mhm.
A little,
So
yeah, a little bit.
a little bit, which is kind of teasing, which I think readers love because they want to know where that's going. And I've only read book one so far, The Last Hurrah, of Phoebe Cornell mystery. Should I ask if there's romance in book two? Does that develop at all between?
Well, I think that's fair to say. And our characters are, being a trilogy, our characters and their theme move along through all three books. And I would say, yes, that relationships grow through book two and into book three. Yes.
But spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
I'm not saying anything more, just that it's all the same characters, different sets of circumstances, but they all still stay in the small town and of Orsville, and they have different circumstances. So it's interesting to see, well, for us anyhow, how they evolve. And it was fun writing the evolution of all of the different characters. Yeah.
Is there a murder in each book?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jean.
There is a murder, and there's, I think if you kind of zoom up and you look at all three books, the basis is at that zoom up level is that it's strong females, a relentless female deputy detective, and a small community. So we start with that foundation and we grow on that. So the first book really touches on homelessness. Yeah. And we don't call it out and we don't try to make a big deal out of it, but old Al, well, he was old because he's called Old Al because, well, he was old, and we have that throughout the book. He was 69 years old, but he really lived outside. He was a gold prospector, and they wrote him off as, well, he's old. Of course he died. Yeah. He was old. He lives out in the mountains of Colorado above tree line, and he's old, so he died. But the relentless detective piece of it changes that. So the second novel then touches, just as we did with book one, second novel touches on domestic violence and domestic abuse and partner violence. And without going into a whole bunch of detail, there's someone in a truck that's dead or worse. Well, that's the stop and think point, dead or worse. And then in the third book, and third book will be out here shortly, but in the third book, we circle back to a murder. And really it was thanks to a small town police chief who said, people love to come and visit and stay sometimes and, buy homes in our area. And the underbelly is that we have, all of our small communities have drugs. And spoiler alert again, but so from that zoomed up view, that's the three areas that we touch on. And for us, it worked very well because we feel strongly, Judy and I, about these three topics. Are you old? Yes, we are old. Are we in healthy relationships? Yes, we can definitely say that. They've certainly lasted a long time. And the third part of it is we're very concerned about the drug use. And I don't care how old you are. Drugs are a problem. And so we get to kind of play around with that and build in some background and make it cozy. And of course, our characters are growing and developing, and makes it very fun, very fun.
So who wants to talk about research? What kind of research you had to do?
Well, I'm going to turn that over to Jean in about
Okay.
1 minute. But as far as the research, I think because we were writing about a very small town, a mining community in the state of Colorado, high in the mountains. Jean did a lot of research to learn about mining in the area over the years, because we wrote about it in the families of some of the characters, and just being aware of well, like voting rights for women, which is a big deal in Colorado and obviously Wyoming. And so there was a lot of research, and I would say that Jean did 99.9% of that research. And people who have read the book that I have had an opportunity to talk with love the history, especially folks down here in Florida will read the book and then like, well, I've never been out there, but now I feel like I've been there. Now I feel like I know what it's like, to live in the mountains in Colorado and learn about the history of it and learn about mining. And so it's really been a real plus for the book for people who are looking to learn a little bit besides having a good time reading our books. So Jean, go ahead.
Thanks, Judy. When I was in college, I majored in history and I loved it. And then when I was a senior, I figured out I really had no way of making a living with a history degree. And so I changed my major when I was a senior. How stupid is that? And switched over to something where I could maybe, make a living. And I love history, and the Colorado history, having lived here for, let's see, 45 years or so. The history is just constantly popping up in little bits and pieces, running into people who talk about, like Laurel, you lived in Leadville for 12 years. And now I talk to people, and it's true. In first book, there was a town named Climax, and the mining people wanted that land, and they moved the town down to Leadville.
Yeah.
I mean, people do that, and that was a long time ago, still in the 1900s, but people still alive today experienced that as children. And so all of that to me is material that we can write into this book. And then, of course, you just don't plop a couple of paragraphs of history into the middle of what's going on. And Judy then steps in and she writes us into it and writes it and then writes it back out. And so that is how we make that work. And it's delightful. And of course, some of the history is more current. Like in every one of the books, I throw in some zingers to my beloved town of Manitou Springs. And some of the things written into this book are, especially in book one, that's the way it used to be 40 years ago when I moved to Manitou, and very fun town to live in. But, experience then is what we write into it. And once again, Judy writes us into it, we write it, and then writes us back out of it. So it's a great collaboration, makes life much easier. I admire people like yourself, Laura, who write books all by yourself. And you have collaborated, as you said, but I really admire that strength that it takes to do that.
Well,
Right.
thank you, but it's not about me. How did your teenager make his appearance? Where did he come from? Do you
Well,
know?
he came from a town that would have been, if it was in real life, Manitou Springs, but he just had enough of family life. His parents were kind of hippies, and he was taking care of his younger siblings, and he just decided, instead of being a senior in high school, I'm going to go and learn how to gold mine. I'm going to go in the mountains and make a lot of money.
Because that's
So
easy.
off he went. And so we carry him forward, not a whole lot more, but some, and so we know how he makes out and what he ends up doing. And I won't give away anything, but he's quite the young man.
And so you had to have Rose the mule in there, which you have to have a mule, a donkey, in Leadville, in the mining area. But who made the decision that we need this teenage kid to show up in our story?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Jean?
I don't, but Laurel, if I could just remind you, we're old and sometimes we don't even remember yesterday. And you're asking us about something we wrote in 2020. Okay. But I think we wanted to have, not just old characters or characters who are in charge of what goes on, the newspaper, the law enforcement, running the entertainment club, the Elks Club. We wanted to have some younger people in it, and Hank seemed to be one of the possibilities. And then to add some humor to it, he and all of his siblings are given names that are very similar to country western stars, because his mother is a true country western music fan, so that was fun. But I think what we liked, and Judy, of course, has a teaching background. I think we named it that he rationalized dropping out before his senior year, called it his early gap year. Well, first off, if you have a lot of kids in the family, the odds of you having a free early or a gap year is, slim. And then he drops out and then decides it's just an early gap year. It's acceptable. But he goes to apply for a job and they're like, no, that dog don't hunt. You gotta have a college or a high school diploma at least, So it's just fun to write that into it. And I've talked to so many teachers, high school teachers, who have said, oh boy, isn't that the truth?
Yes, and the fact that he's in there gives the book a nice balance too. As you mentioned, you've got all these more mature people, and then you throw in the mule and you throw in the young kid, and it mixes things up a little bit, and it makes it more real. So kudos on that.
Thanks.
So lots of research, I mean, you've probably visited the place a few times. Did you discover any surprises in your research, either about the place or about yourselves? Let's see, who wants to talk about it? Judy, what do you think? Did you any surprises?
I would say, if I wanted to talk about ourselves in regard to surprises, that we have stuck to it through 3 books with the plans for additional books, that we have enjoyed ourselves as much as we have, that we have really embraced this writing process and the creation of something concrete. I don't think we're all that thrilled about the technology side of it, but then there's people do that for us and we're grateful. We struggle, but it's everything is a learning experience. But I think that's the other piece of it, is that as senior citizens, doing something that's new and challenging has been very, very exciting. And it just keeps your mind young. The rest might not be young, but the mind is and so that's a really good strong point. So I'll turn it over to Jean.
I really don't know what I could add to it. I think you're right. It's like another occupation that you have to learn from ground zero. And our support of one another, I think, has made it more and more possible. But we also get hung up on all of the bits and pieces of technology. It should work. And then all of a sudden you'll hear Judy say, I had it all typed and it's gone. What? No, Judy, don't shut off your computer and reboot. Don't do that. So we are constantly and we become such good friends. We talk every morning for a couple of hours, most mornings. And so every now and then Judy will say, I think I'd like to have breakfast tomorrow morning with my husband. Could we skip tomorrow? I was like, fine. I'll just write and you can catch up.
I was wondering about the friendship and if it has become strained at any point in this.
No,
No.
not at all. And people have asked us that question, and they'll also ask about, well, how is it? How can you possibly get along with each other? And don't you ever argue about what should be in the book and what shouldn't be in the book? And the answer is no, we don't. We don't. We just read it together. We each contribute parts of it. We modify it. We change it. I always tell people that you have to have a thick skin. You can't just think if Jean doesn't like something, a sentence or a concept or something, I can't be offended by that. And I'm not offended by it. It's like, okay, let's rewrite this and make it better than it already is. And I think Jean does the same thing on the other side. So we get along. Some days we get frustrated, but never with each other. We get frustrated with some of the processes, or like Jean just said, somebody will type something and then we'll go back, let's say in this new Word 365 that we're trying to learn, and things get lost. And it's like, oh my goodness, where is it? And we get frustrated with processes, but never with each other. Jean is a wonderful person to work with.
Oh, thanks, Judy. Thanks. And yeah, well, the Mutual Admiration Society once again. And we really, we haven't seen one another in person other than, FaceTime for a year. And it's like we really don't need to be in the same room to write. And I would use that as an encouragement to others who are thinking about writing. Doing it by yourself, ooh, wow, how boring could that be? What a steep learning curve that could be. Who wants to fumble around with it and then try to figure out, how am I going to get this published? That's like a mountain that you've got to climb.
Yeah.
And having a partner to do it, like Judy, it really is valuable. My husband is, he's like, forget it. I don't know what you're talking about, but he's my IT man. And so I go to him for help me, and he'll figure it out. And then, I go off and call Judy. Judy, have you ever heard of this? And she'll say,
No,
no,
I haven't.
Well,
Yeah.
Jean, I hear that Florida is pretty nice this time of year if Colorado people want to get away from cold. So, if you've been thinking maybe you need a little write together, maybe you need a little weekend away. But so it's funny, you mentioned every morning you talk on my phone still. Every Thursday comes up puzzle time with Nadine. So every Thursday morning we visit for an hour on FaceTime. We visit face to face. And it's, it started when we started writing piece by piece, 10 lessons from a jigsaw puzzle. And it continued because I'm like, okay, the book's published, it's out there. I just like visiting with her now every week.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, it's very nice. It's very nice.
It's pretty awesome. So how many more? You have 2 out and the 3rd is on its way soon. And is there a 4th in progress?
No, it is not in progress on paper. It is in progress in our minds.
Wait, caveat, in Judy's mind, she's mentally gone off to book 4.
Oh, wait. Here is where the friendship ends.
No, people
Oh,
Said to
I'm about a month behind her on that fourth book curve,
Okay.
narrative arc.
All
narrative
right.
arc.
So tell us, show us book two. What's book two?
Oh, book two. Here's book two, the
Okay.
last slide. See it clearly in there.
Yeah, yeah.
And back in there, and there's our Phoebe Cornell, our relentless detective.
Okay.
And she is happy in Colorado, sort of happy. Yeah, she's happy. And her saga continues with, in this case, a situation that could have been a murder, but I'm not going to do a spoiler alert on it. But it continues on with the relationships of all the people that we have in book one, and it adds some additional people,
Okay.
to add to that specific story. And again, it takes place in Orsville, and there's all of the same things involved at different levels, but we've got humor in there, we've got a lot of history in there, descriptions of the mountains, descriptions of some mining situations, and the characters continue on. So yeah, we had a lot of fun with this one, for
All
sure.
right. And I understand that book one is now out in audio. And so, yeah, Jean, you talked about Judy having a lovely voice. Judy, did you narrate it?
No, I did not. We hired a company. I had gone to the Wyoming Writers Conference in Sheridan, Wyoming this past June. And there was a gentleman there having a display, and his company, which is a very small company, does audiobooks. And so Jean and I spoke with them, this gentleman, Luke, and his wife, Lily, and we were very impressed with them, and they offered us a great contract to do all three books, book one, book two, and book three. So book one is done and uploaded and available on Amazon. Book number two is being recorded this week, and we are hoping when book three is actually published on Amazon that in the February we'll have book three, the audiobook, completed for that too. So yeah, we're just thrilled with that. And it's very interesting process, and I don't know if you have done that process, Laurel, have you, for audiobooks, so you know, but maybe your listeners don't. So we had the opportunity to listen to a couple of different actresses and we requested, we wanted a woman to do it because we have got our primary character as a woman. And the first person we listened to, we didn't feel really captured what we were looking for. And they brought in a second person who was an actress and has recorded lots of books, lots and lots of books. And she was perfect. So she had a copy of book one. The company that we contract with, the lady's name was Lily. Lily went through and picked out sections with all these different characters. And so this actress read paragraphs of all the different characters with how she would have them sound and what the accents were, et cetera, et cetera. And she was and is terrific. And she's got her own following, for people will go to buy books that she has narrated because they think that highly of her. So we were just thrilled to have her. And she will do all three books.
Well, that's fabulous to know, because a narrator of a book can make or break an experience for a reader / listener. If someone is irritating to the ears, you can't listen to it. And again, if someone captures a mood or a personality or whatever. I love listening to audiobooks when I'm out walking, when I'm vacuuming, when I'm on my treadmill. It makes the time go by fast, and it's fabulous. So I'm so happy to hear that these are out. Yes. Jean.
if I could add a comment too, I'm running into more and more people who only do audio because they are really limited on how good their site is anymore.
Yeah.
And this is like a whole new world for them, that they can listen to audiobooks while they're, Lord help us, still driving. But around the house, out for walks, it just losing their sight is a very real concern for a lot of people I've talked to who love audio for that reason.
Mhm.
And I can relate to that. I have crummy eyesight, but I think audio is really a great way to produce a service for people who have limitations.
It
So
is.
it makes sense for us. And we also looked at having both a narrator, a female narrator, and a male doing the parts for the budding romance with Phoebe. And everybody loves Beautiful Man, and he is Beautiful Man. And this guy did not sound like a beautiful man. So let me just say that. So, but also, our expectations are he should sound this way, he should sound that way. I don't, maybe I could take a course and someone would, from Hollywood would tell me what are the good voices to have for audio. I don't know that stuff. And that's, another learning tool for Judy and I is how do you go? So we really rely on this husband and wife team up outside of Fort Collins, Greeley, to help us with that because they both have experience in Hollywood. And it's whatever we want. We're the customers.
Right.
Well, as customers, Judy and I are learning. I wouldn't say that we know what we are doing. We do not. But that's the first step in learning is admit you don't know.
I have to disagree with you because your very first book right out the gate that you pantsed was a finalist in the Cal Author Award. So
yeah, thank you.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
and we really went off the rails last year. It was the whole COVID thing, and we really didn't know what to do with book one. And here we have book two, and it's just fun to write and fun to publish it. And by the way, we have to sell some of these things. It's thank goodness we don't have to rely on sales to put food on the table. Okay. Thank you, Social Security, right?
Do you have any marketing tips while we're on that? How do you market?
Well,
Judy?
we've done a little, I'm sorry, Jean.
No, go ahead, Judy, you've got it.
We just spent a great deal of time and energy with book number 3, getting it right, getting it edited, getting it cleaned up. And sometimes all of the things that we need to do, including the marketing, it becomes overwhelming. And I think Jean feels the same way. Sometimes I just shut down because it's too much. I can't do all these different things with all these balls in the air. So what we have chosen to do is we focus on book 3. We have got it now that it's in the process of being uploaded and published. Now, our next effort is going to be marketing programs. We do have an email group. We do have a presence on media type like Facebook and TikTok and all that jazz. But we have not really utilized it to the max. And we really need to take our eyes off other things and focus on the marketing thing 100% and see what we can do. And I know there's some tools out there from different companies, and we're going to be working on what's going to work for us. So that's where we're at with it, Laurel.
All right, Jean, anything to add to the marketing aspect?
Oh yeah, Once again, the Writers Exchange did a workshop a couple of months ago, October, and Writers Exchange does 2 workshops a year, and they are so valuable if you're a writer at all and you're interested in writing. Not that you have to be published, but you're interested. I think the real key here is go to these workshops. They're very inexpensive. $20 is the one coming in this February if you're a member. And Laurel, by the way, is the membership chair for the Writers Exchange. So for $20, you're a member. And for another 20, you can go to this very advanced workshop. And I went to this, and once again, I left the workshop. I called Judy. Judy, have you ever heard of a QR code? And she's like, no, should I Google that? I'm like, yeah, I think we need to figure this one out. That's the extent of our marketing is we need a QR code, and we need business cards, and we need this, we need that. And we have a cadre of women here in Leadville, and yourself, Laurel, and Salida, and also Buena Vista. And they're very helpful, and they're willing to come up with ideas. And, I think it's interesting in book 2, someone had said, I really get confused when I read a series. Where are all these locations in town? Oh, you mean you need a map? And there's this one lady saying that, and the other lady saying, I can draw you a map. And so here's the map for book 2. And then we updated it for book 3 and then said, well, this is such a great idea. We'll make a bookmark out of it. So it's that kind of, and these women are, saying, gee, I really wish, and we're going, boom, we can do this.
Women and men. We have a cadre of women and men, very talented in
Very
the
talented.
CC
Yeah.
Writers Exchange, and there's a critique group. And yeah, so without me saying anything, what kind of advice would you give to budding authors? Judy, what kind of writing advice would you give to authors?
Discipline yourself to write every day. Find a place in your house that's all you do at that place is write. So you are not disrupted by quote life going on around you. Have faith in yourself. And I would encourage anybody to belong to writers groups. 1, 2, 3. I belong to one in Wyoming. I belong to one in Florida. And I still have been a member with the one in Colorado, CCWE. And you make a lot of contacts, and you get a lot of encouragement to move forward. Yeah. So that's what I would say.
Jean, what do you have to add?
Well, I would add, and Judy and I wrote this into a little comment in book 3, back in the 1500s, 1600s, a philosopher by the name of Van Gogh wrote, leap and the net will appear. And every now and then I see that phrase on different things, everybody in the world, of course, getting credit for it, but it originated with this guy. And I think that's right. Take that step. And I think there are it's the recipe. Take the step and then develop your place to write, your time to write. For myself, I take copious notes. If someone tells me a story, I say to Judy, you know what, Judy, you can't make this stuff up. These are human beings doing crazy stuff. And sometimes I use a vernacular on it even. Have you ever heard of it? And I'll take a note and we'll write it in. And you have to be careful what you say around Judy and Jean, because you and your experience might appear in the next book.
That's right.
Excellent advice from both of you. And oh my goodness, this has been a delightful visit, and I would like to offer you both tea or something else. So you're going to have to get that on your own. But where can people find out more about you and find your books? Jean?
Well, of course, we have to have a website, right? And so go to B as in Butler, BNG as in Gabardi, books.com, bngbooks.com. And you can write to Phoebe Cornell at gmail.com, right? And then the books and the audio and the paperbacks and Kindle and now audio are on Amazon, our old buddies at Amazon. And we know that you can get them at some libraries. You can request them and they'll get them. And even the independent bookstores can order them in through, whatever their means is. Usually it's Ingram, right? So
Right.
just look, we're there, or go to our email and we'll be happy to talk to you.
Awesome. Judy, any shout outs to anyone?
I beg your pardon?
Any shout outs to anyone who have helped or encouraged or?
Oh my goodness. Well, I would say our husbands who have tolerated us, who have encouraged us, who see that we're happy doing what we're doing, and because it does take a lot of time away from them and things that they might want to be doing. So we're thankful for that. We're thankful for the women, and I think it's all been women who have done beta readings of our book and edited and given us feedback, not only just the mechanical pieces of it, but some thoughts of how the story went, and if we needed to make from a reader standpoint, if we needed to make any modifications. So we're very, very grateful for them, for sure. And our children and grandchildren, but especially our children, who are very excited about what we're doing, and they have been very supportive, and once in a while a little critical in a positive way, though. We love them. So yeah, thank you. And
Jean?
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's been overdue. Jean, shout outs?
Oh, just ditto to what Judy said, because it really does take a lot of people and their support for us to start into another career stream, and it really is a stream. It flows, and you're an author. You know what it's like to go through the process and the publishing that goes with it. And I think the big thing for me is a lot of the people that I know that we have written into the book, and they're still friends, and they still put up with us, and they are still talking to us. And Becky's Buns Up, really, that is a dear friend of mine for 50 years, and she is still a good friend, and she is a terrific baker. And so she got stuck with the ownership on Buns Up. Becky's Buns was the narrative on that.
I think that's
But a lot of
fabulous.
people like that. And thanks for the opportunity to mention them and thank. Yeah, it's good. It's all good.
You're so welcome. And so you two will send me some pictures and some links to things, and I will have them on my website at leadvillelaurel.com. We'll have photos with links and show notes from what we just discussed here. And this episode will go live on YouTube, and then we'll have an audio version. And Judy Butler and Jean, aka GaGa Gabardi, this has been delightful. And when you finish, I don't know, when you finish your series, if you ever finish your series, we'll do this again, and we'll see where you are, and we'll see if you're still friends. But your collaboration is delightful, and it gives me great hope in humanity and friendship.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And we'll see you soon at the next CCWE We Write event. So, and for any of you out there looking for a writing community, I'll have a link to that too. So,
all right. Thank you. And goodbye for now.
Goodbye for now, and stay well.
You too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.